As you can see, I've done everything from historical pieces to vampire films to fantasy, horror, and beyond. So I've had quite a full career of just about every type of makeup that you could ever want to do. And I just feel so blessed that I've been able to do that and have so much fun doing it. And the way I do this is usually, so I don't bore you to death, I like to answer questions that you guys might have. So if somebody has a question they'd like to ask me, that's how we'll start off. Does anybody have a question? We have a microphone here for you.
I'm hungry, me like your mother.
Check, check. Oh, there we go.
Out of everything you've created, which is your favorite? What's your favorite monster that you've created?
The favorite monster that I've created? I don't know that I've ever created any monsters, as it were. Well, maybe the guy from Galaxy Quest, but that was actually Stan Winston created that, and I just applied it. But I don't know, when somebody asked me what was the favorite movie you've ever done, for the longest time, I used to say The Lost Boys, because for me, and that movie is probably older than some of you. You probably weren't even born when that movie was made, some of you, so. But it was just so much fun to work with all the young guys and to do those vampires. And, you know, up until then, nobody had ever really done a vampire movie that looked like that. And, you know, when we developed that film, we really wanted them to be sexy and fun and scary and beautiful, like, you know, kind of like demonic angels. And that sort of set the style of that look set the style of how vampires were going to look from then on. And so that was really cool. Like Greg Canham and I developed those characters. And like I said, that was probably my favorite film for a long time. But having like a favorite makeup is kind of like asking who's your favorite child. You know, it's not something you can kind of readily say. So after that, I did a whole bunch of other really fun movies. The Hunger Games were a blast to do. And in the Hunger Games, what was really cool about that is we did every type of makeup that you have ever learned how to do, all the way from high fashion right down to, you know, prosthetic creatures and, you know, beyond injuries, everything. Every type of makeup that we were ever taught to do is in those movies, so that was really fun. But I'd say probably one of my other favorite groups of films were the pirate movies, because they were really fun to develop. And the first three movies, you know, we made so many cool characters, you know, from, you know, Johnny when he gets kidnapped by the natives, and those were all kind of really cool makeups in there. Joel Harlow designed, and he and I put them on along with a lot of other people. We probably had about 50, well, sometimes we had almost 50 makeup artists working, and also probably about 40 hairdressers, so we had a really big crew on those films. And I just went on, and did I answer your question?
Dean, you're such an icon of the industry now. Who are your influences coming up?
Well, you know, when I started, probably, you know, I didn't even know their names because I was so out of the loop. I mean, I just used to sit and watch all these old black and white movies all the time when I was a kid. And, you know, I didn't know who Jack Pierce was, and I didn't have any reference points, and I wasn't allowed to get monster magazines or anything. You know, my mother used to always say to me, she goes, I don't know why you want to watch all that stuff. I don't get it. You know, you think every day is Halloween. And I said, well, yeah, it's cool. But I would say probably, you know, initially, you know, Jack Pierce was the person that I didn't even know that was who it was, because I just watched all those old Universal horror films. And then I continued to watch, you know, all the B movies as I was growing up. And even though I knew I always wanted to do makeup, I never actually knew to look into it anymore, because I was always told, number one, I was a woman, and women weren't allowed to do makeup, you know, in the movies. And, you know, and I didn't know anybody, and you had to have a relative in the business, and on and on and on. So I never really thought much of it until I got to be, you know, out of high school, and I thought, well, what am I going to do with myself? Because I really knew that I always wanted to do this, but I never knew how I was going to get into it. So, you know, not having a makeup school to go to and being told that I was a woman and I couldn't do it, I said, okay, fine. So I decided I was going to go into doing a fashion merchandising school, and I thought, well, I could be a costume designer because they're women and I love making costumes. yada yada. And so I went to this school and I was there and I thought, these people are miserable. They are horrible people. They were so backstabby and yippy at each other. And I went, I can't deal with this. I want to be with people that like what they do and are happy and, are creative and not, be bitching at one another all the time. So I used to go to the flea markets all the time when I was younger. And I had these two gay friends that owned a clothing store called Glad Rags, way down on Melrose, way at the end of town. And I used to hang out with them all the time. And they wanted to open up another store. So they said, hey, do you want to be our partner? And I was 18 years old. And I said, sure. So I opened up another clothing store with them. In the interim, besides all this, I had gotten married when I was 18, thinking that was a really good idea. And he was in the music business. He was a tour manager, a British guy, swept me off my feet, charmed my mother, and ruined our bank accounts, that kind of guy. And anyway, so he had introduced me to a lot of the rock and roll bands of the years, like the Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple, and, a lot of really cool people. So that being the case, I started saving all these vintage clothing for all these different bands. And then I started kind of making some costumey stuff for them. And then I started working with some local bands in the area. And that's kind of how I segued into makeup. I kind of went in the rock and roll back door. I was working for this one crazy band in LA called Zol-RX. They were like a space band, kind of like on the tail end of the Ziggy Stardust, David Bowie thing. And they said, well, we love our colored hair and our freaky haircuts and the cool makeup that you do, but we really want to have pointed ears and big brains. And I went, huzzah, yes, I want to do that. I don't know how to do it, but let me go figure it out. So I decided that I was going to take off and go to a Star Trek convention. And I went to a Star Trek convention, and when I was there, I saw these guys walking around in Planet of the Apes makeups. And I went up to them and I said, hey, you guys, where did you get those masks? And they looked at me really indignantly and they said, these aren't masks, these are makeups. And I went, even better, where did you get those makeups? And they said, well, we made them. And I said, that's the coolest thing ever. Can you teach me how to do that? And they looked at each other kind of puzzled and they looked back at me and the one guy said, yeah, but you're a girl. And I said, I know, isn't it fabulous? So they kind of took me in, and I went up to their garage every weekend up in Santa Barbara, and I watched how they made this stuff, and they helped me make these ears and these brains for this band and showed me how to put them on. And one thing led to another. I fell in love with one of those guys, and I was with him for 4 years, and he and I did makeups on low-budget, non-union movies forever. And then I got in the union. And that is how I started doing makeup. So I know you didn't ask that question, but there it is. That's my long, drawn-out story. So you never know how you're going to start. I always knew I wanted to do it, and I couldn't figure out how I was going to get in, but I thought, eventually I'm going to figure this out, and I'm just going to, bust my way in. And it wasn't, I'm not going to say it wasn't easy and it wasn't terribly hard. It was just different because most of the time, people would say, but you're a girl. They kept saying that. And I thought, what? I mean, you guys don't even wear makeup. How do you even know how to do it? How do you even know how to make up a girl? When have you ever worn lipstick, basically? So anyway, that's how I started. And I did films for Charlie Band for a few years, these horrible B movies. And then in the interim there, while I was doing those movies for Charlie Band, at one of the conventions, can somebody get me a glass of water, please? At one of the conventions, I had met Fred Phillips. And Fred Phillips was the makeup artist who did the original Star Trek TV show. He also did a lot of The Outer Limits. And he was this fabulous guy. And Fred was kind of one of my mentors. And what was so cool about Fred was, Steve Neill, that's the guy who I met that lived up in Santa Barbara, who taught me how to do makeup. And I mean, he barely knew either, but we kind of learned together. This is what happens when you chatter too much. So anyway, where was I?
Phillips.
Oh yeah, Steve Neill in Santa Barbara. Oh, Fred Phillips. So anyway, Steve and I would get these jobs that were union jobs. We could make the stuff, but we couldn't go put it on. So I would call up Fred, and we'd say, hey Fred, we got this job, will you go put the makeup on? Yeah, and this happened probably a half a dozen times. So I had a really good, connection with Fred, and he was, as I said, one of my mentors. And a time period came in the early mid-70s where they had to open up the unions because, of all things, they didn't have enough makeup artists in the union, which is not the case now, but they did not have a case, and it was actually a government thing. They actually told them they had to open up the unions, and there was this period where if you had 30 days working within this several months period, you could get in the union without taking a test or anything. So this is the period that I got into the union on, and they would call us 30-day wonders. And anyway, one day my phone rang, and I picked up the phone. This was before caller ID or anything, and it was Fred, and he said, "Hey, B," he said, "You're in the union now, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, I got a call. They're going to be making a Star Trek movie." He said, "Would you like to come work on it with me?" I almost fell over. I said, "Are you kidding me? Hell yeah, I want to come work on a Star Trek movie." I mean, we were all Trekkies, that's what we grew up watching. And he said, he says, "I know you've done a couple of pictures with Bill." And he said, "I just thought it would be really nice if he had a young, pretty girl there to make him up and take care of him." And I said, "Sure, I'll take care of Bill, no problem." So, the Star Trek film was actually my first big film. And I went to work for Fred on it. And his daughter also had gotten in the union during that period, so she was on it. And a lot of other makeup artists. But Fred was really cool. He always hired young people. So a lot of the guys, all those guys that taught me how to do makeup, they also did all the lab work on it, along with the very extremely famous Charlie Schramm, who I got to meet, who was really a neat man. And then, of course, when we had our big scenes, we had all the other old-time makeup artists that I'd always heard about and never seen. They were all there, too. So that was kind of really cool. I got to do a lot of really cool stuff on that film. One of the things that Fred let me do was I did all the test makeups on every single one of the Klingons in that film. So there was 13 of them. And I remember this specifically because one day the 7 that I had done the test on were walking out one of the stages at Paramount, and I was walking towards them, and I just saw these 7 guys in these bitchin' black outfits with all the gear on them and their makeups, and I was like getting all fluttered, and really, it was like so cool to see them all just walking around at me, it was like the coolest thing ever. So that was really one of my favorite parts about that, but obviously I didn't do them all for the film. I actually did the 3 lead Klingons in that film. And I thought it was kind of funny because, I had done all their makeups, and I had also dressed all the hair pieces for them. So their heads were all made. I laid all the hair on the heads, I dressed it, and then I took the facial hair pieces that we also glued onto their face, and I dressed them into the hair so that everything was perfect. All these makeup men had to do was put these heads on, put the facial pieces on, and just kind of finger them into place in the hair on the head, and they were all ready to go. They didn't have to do a damn thing. And on the day, I'm telling tales out of school here. On the day, they got everybody ready, and I didn't see anybody because I was in the makeup room doing the 3 guys I did. And I went to set, and I looked at them all, and I thought, why do they look so weird? And one by one, each one of the actors came up to me. They said, "V, can you fix me?" They combed out our hair pieces, and I went, "What?" They had gone and just, paid no attention to the fact that everything was dressed and just combed them out and made them all just slick back. And I was devastated, It's like, oh my God. And of course, I wasn't going to fix anybody because I was a newbie, and I certainly wasn't going to go and take all these makeups apart that all these old timers had done that I've, been in awe of all my life. And anyway, I just told him, I said, There's going to be lots of fog. Nobody will see you. You'll be in the background. You'll be fabulous. And there was lots of fog. Nobody noticed. And I don't know how I got off on that tangent, but I think maybe we need another question.
Hi. Have you ever seen a character or makeup that you didn't do but you wish you worked on?
I couldn't quite hear that. Have I ever seen a character what?
Or a makeup job that you didn't do but you wish you had worked on?
Oh, if I didn't do, oh God, lots of them. I couldn't even name them all. I mean, there's been so many cool makeups, but you know, if they were done well, you wouldn't want to do them any other way, so I don't know. But there's been so many, and I really couldn't even name them at this point. You know, I've been doing this for 40 years, so I've seen plenty of makeups. I tell you what, I have seen some that were so crappy that I thought I wish I could have done. I know that. The good ones, not so much, but there have been some really bad ones that I've just gone, oh my God, if so-and-so would have done that, or if I would have done that, I never would have done it that way. But, you know, and those I can't remember either, but, you know, that does happen. You look at stuff and you think, what were they thinking of when they did that? It's so terrible, you know? It's like, it's unwatchable, actually, you know? Anybody else? Oh, hi, Cousin Ed's over there. I can even see that.
That goes right into my next question.
If I go to that,
Have you ever done makeup on animals?
have I ever done makeup on animals?
Or if you have, what's your favorite?
I haven't, well, not, I've only ever had to do makeup on, well, maybe two. I had to paint a dog once for something. I don't know what it was for. I think he had to match another dog and he didn't have some spots on him or something, so we did that. And I do know that I did a Western a really long time ago. We had to match some horses. That was really hard because the horses sweat a lot. We were out in the desert. But that was gross. But yeah, I have painted a couple of critters. And that's not naming them people that were animals. Like I said, I can't see anything, so.
Do you have a character concept that was handed to you at some point where you really had to think out of the box and try something totally new?
Okay, you're gonna have to speak slower and a little louder.
Were you ever handed a character concept where you really had to think out of the box and try a technique that was completely new and different from anything you've done before?
Oh wow, I'm sure I have, but what would it have been? Think about that. That's a really good question. I might have to put that in my back pocket and save it for another day. You know, I don't know. Just about on every show, sometimes you have to sort of think out of the box. You think, oh crap, well I can't do that because I don't have that. What can I do? I can't think of anything specific, but I'm sure I have done it. I mean, as all of us have, makeup artists, because you'll get into a situation where you're out on location and the director all of a sudden says, I want a blah, 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 and you go, you couldn't have told me that 3 months ago when I had a lab. But, you know, it does happen. Oh, you know what? We did on Constantine. They called me up one day. We'd finished filming, and they wanted to do some pickup shots. And I thought, okay, well, I still have prosthetics, and we have to do the young girl or whatever. Or I still have tattoos for him. I had everything. And they said, we want to do a tag where he has, I think it was like a fantasy scene. I'm not even sure if it wound up in the movie now. But we had to do a whole bunch of zombies walking out of the ocean. And we didn't have prosthetics or anything, so I thought, okay, well, we'll just do a lot of paint and we'll do some, you know, latex and tissue and stuff and just build up some crazy stuff. So there was 4 of us, and we literally, like, on the day just had to get out there and do, you know, out-of-kit zombie makeups. And they actually came out really cool. In fact, the more they were in the water, the cooler they started looking, because the tissue and latex started to shrivel up and peel. So every time they would come out, we would just paint some other hideous color inside the peeling stuff, and it worked really well. But that was probably the only time that something's ever, like, you know, gotten us like off the, just like out of the blue, that I can remember right off the top of my head, because I was talking about it the other day actually. But most of the time we're pretty well prepared, and I always try to take stuff with me. If I know we're doing a movie where people are going to get shot, I'll always take, some bullet hits and stuff. Or I always have like a little box of tricks with some scars and things. You never know what you're going to need. But most of the time, I don't think I can think of anything else. It's really noisy in here, isn't it? I'm sorry.
All right, we got another one over here.
Were there any actors that you worked with which were absolutely horrible?
That were actually what?
Horrible to work with.
There's only been one. And the last time I worked with him, he was an absolute dream. He was so happy to see me, and I hadn't seen him in 20 years. And now he's older, and he was actually really nice. But he was a toughie at the time. But I think it's pretty well known, and his name is Tommy Lee Jones.
She named names.
And he was just, thankfully for me, I can pretty much deal with anybody. I'm really good with pretty much everybody. I get along with everybody. And he's one of those kind of guys that if you show any kind of weakness at all, he will start going for it. And he will just mess with you until he makes you cry. And I watched him do it to a wardrobe girl, and I felt so bad for her. But he was okay with me because I stood up for myself. Like the first movie that I did with him was a film called Cobb, where he played this baseball player, Ty Cobb. And Ty Cobb was an asshole too, so it was kind of like typecasting. But I remember the first day he walked into the makeup trailer. John Blake was with me on the show, and I said to John, "We're just going to do a really quick stretch and stipple makeup on him. We're only going to have 3 age spots that we're ever going to have to match, so that we can do this quickly." Because he literally told me that I had 1 hour to make him look 80 years old. And so I said, "Well, in that case, we're shaving his head." So we shaved his head so we could put the hairpiece on him. And I remember he walked in the trailer, and I don't think he was expecting to see a woman in there. And he walked in, and he kind of looked at me, and he went like this. He says, "You have 1 hour, made me look 80 years old." And I said, "Well, okay." I said, "I guess we'll see how old you look in an hour. How's that?" And he just kind of shut up, and he didn't say anything else. And I thought, well, good. I'm okay for a minute. So we did him, and at the end of it, and he looked really good. We just whipped it on him. We had our plan. I had our plan all worked out. John and I got him in that makeup in an hour and 5 minutes. And at the end of it, he looked, he goes, "This looks pretty damn good." He says, "Now you're fucked, pardon my French." And I went, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, you're going to have to do it this fast every day." And I said, "Well, hell," I said, "this is only our first time. Usually it gets faster after you do it a few times." And he went, he didn't say anything else again. And I never had trouble with him after that. He never messed with me. He was really nice to me, and he liked me. So he was just one of those kind of guys that as long as you stood up for yourself and you were, confident, he didn't mess with you. But that was okay. And the thing about it was, I knew I had to make good with him on this movie because I had just talked to Joel Schumacher before that. And he said, "V," he says, "I hope you get along with Tommy on this movie because I'm asking him to be one of the bad guys in the next Batman film." And I went, "Oh, goody." So I knew going in that I had to make good because I knew I was going to be doing that film. And that was the film where he played Two-Face. And at the end of Cobb, I said, "Tommy," I said, "you're not going to be in the chair an hour for that makeup." I said, "So you better just get used to that idea," because I said, "That's going to be a little bit longer than an hour makeup job." Because "That's okay, they're paying me good." And I went, "Okay." Money makes it all go away, I guess. But he was pretty good on Batman. He liked me, like I said, so that was cool. Never gave me any grief. But the last movie that I just did with him was actually this year. It was called The Highwayman. He played a news, I think he owns a news company or something. But he has mellowed out tremendously, and it was really funny because I hadn't seen him in 20 years. It's a long story about a guy you can write. he was down at the other end of the makeup trailer when we started this last film. And, oh, actually, that wasn't this year. It was last year, sorry. In fact, it's the film that's out right now called Shock and Awe. It just came out a few weeks ago. Anyway, so he was down at the other end of the trailer getting a haircut. And he hadn't looked down at my end of the trailer yet. He was just kind of focused on getting his haircut. And the hairdresser said, she turns to me and she goes, V, are you ready for Tommy? And I said, yeah, anytime. And Tommy literally raised up out of his chair and looked over at the end of the trailer. He said, V. Neill, get down here now. I mean, he remembered my last name and everything, and it had been 20 years. And I went down there, and he said, how are you doing? And I said, good. And I said, you're going to have to do better than that. I need a hug. And I reached down and hugged him, and he was so happy to see me. I couldn't believe it. It was kind of like he kind of did one of these, you know, like he didn't have to like deal with somebody he didn't know. So, you know, I guess they all mellow out eventually. What happened? Oh, I'm in dance mode. Any more questions? How about the people that I really love to work with? How about those guys? Let's talk about like Johnny Depp, who's like a dreamboat. We love Johnny. I've done several movies with him. I did one of his first films. That was Edward Scissorhands. And that was really so much fun. And then, of course, I did the pirate films with him, and I did that movie Blow, where I got to age him up to like way into his 60s.
Oh, yeah.
And the pirate films and Sweeney Todd, and yeah, it was Johnny's awesome. He's a cool guy. And of course, I loved doing the Hunger Games with Jennifer Lawrence. She was really cool. And then I got to do some of her red carpet stuff with her, which was really a blast because we were sort of we were actually filming the Hunger Games. And in the middle of it, we had to stop because she had to go do all the press for the Hunger Games film that had come out the year before. So we were off doing that. So I got to travel all over on private jets with her for a while. So that was fun. And then Robin Williams, who I absolutely adored and who I stayed friends with after Mrs. Doubtfire. He was terrific. He was really fun. Mrs. Doubtfire was a cool trip to do because for him, the first time we did that makeup on, you want to hear Mrs. Doubtfire's story?
Yeah!
The first time we did the makeup on him, it took like 4 hours to get him in hair and makeup and wardrobe. And I thought, well, this is never going to work because this is way too long for an actor to be getting ready in the morning. I said, we got to get it down, you know, so that he's in and out of here in about 2 and change. So, like I said, the first time we did it was 4 hours, and then we got it down. We basically got it down to 2 hours most of the time, and sometimes we actually did a little quicker. That's just the makeup part I'm talking about, not the hair or the wardrobe. And he wore a big fat suit, so he had a lot of stuff going on. But Robin I didn't realize it, but Robin had never seen any, like, hardly any classic films. So I thought, well, this is what we're going to do. And this is like right when the time the laser discs just came out. So my assistant, Stefan Dupuy, had a laser machine. So he brought in his laser machine and all of his, laser discs. And we showed Robin movies every day. So movies are always about 2 hours long, so it worked out really well. We took the doors off the cabinets behind him, and I installed a TV and monitor up there, and we played him a movie every day. So Robin got to see all these really cool classic films that he had never seen. I mean, he was amazed, and he had so much fun. So that was kind of cool for Robin. And another cool story about that was one day we were out on the streets in San Francisco filming, and Robin and I were standing on a corner. And this random, they were letting the pedestrians walk up and down the street, and nobody knew what we were shooting. Nobody knew that Robin was in a makeup or anything. They had no idea. And this guy stopped and he said, "You work on the movie?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Is Robin Williams here today?" And I said, "Yeah, he's somewhere around here, I think." And he was standing right next to me. So that was kind of fun, nobody even noticed this, old lady. And to me, it was really noticeable that it was a guy in makeup, but nobody else noticed. So that was a pretty good fooling right there. What else did we talk about?
Hello.
Say again?
Hello. I'm a huge fan of yours. Huge fan of your work. When did you start collaborating with my other idol, Rick Baker? Can you share a fun story collaborating with Rick Baker?
A fun story. Oh, a fun story about Rick Baker. Well, I mean, you know, when I first started, we all used to hang out together in each other's garages and, you know, work on crazy movies. And he would always give me a call. V, do you know how to do this? And I would go, well, not really. But I said, do you have any ideas? And he goes, well, yeah, you could maybe blah blah blah, or look it up in a book. And I go, yeah, right. What Richard Corson, this crappy old makeup book that everybody had was already outdated back then. And I said, I'll wing it. I'll figure it out. Okay. But I mean, as far as you know, Rick and I, we never got to really work together a lot in the early days because he was, you know, doing his own projects and stuff. There was the only movie that I remember working with him on early on was The Incredible Shrinking Woman, because Rick Baker was actually the gorilla in that movie, and I would color his eyes for him every day, so and take care of his contact lenses. But other than that, I didn't get to work with Rick until we did Ed Wood, I think.
Yes.
And I hadn't even talked to him in a really long time. Oh, you know what? I also went and helped him on Coming to America. I remember he called me one day and he said, "Can you come in and help me do hands on the guys while I'm doing the makeups?" He says, "I hate to ask you," but he said, "I need somebody that's really good because they're hard to put on." I said, "Yeah, I'll come help you. No worries, you know." So I went in and helped him on that. Did Eddie's hands. But other than that, I never have like actually been on set working with Rick. I did Ed Wood stuff with him. He made stuff there. You know, the Mark Landau makeup that we both won the Oscar for, so that was cool. And basically, we're just been friends for all these years. You know, we kind of did.
Thank you.
Somebody was asking me about Beetlejuice. They wanted to know my story from Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice was really, really a fun movie to work on. It came right after I did The Lost Boys. And the production designer on The Lost Boys, at the end of the movie, he said, "B," he says, "I got this script for this really cool movie. He says, it's right up your alley. You got to go do it." So I figured it out. I, you know, talked to some people that I knew. I got interviews, blah, blah, blah. Cut to, we're doing the movie. So when I first met Tim Burton, he had some like funky pencil sketches up on a crappy corkboard in this really crappy little trailer that the production company was in, because we were sort of the stepchildren. They stuck us way out in Culver City Studios, and they didn't think anybody was ever going to see this movie, and they didn't think, you know, they just, you know, they didn't care about us. They just stuck us out there. And we had this crappy little corkboard with these pictures on it. So when it came time to start testing Michael, I did him just like the pictures looked on the corkboard that he had drawn. He goes, "Oh, no," he says, he looks too scuzzy. Nobody's going to want to look at him. He just looks too real and too, you know, cruddy. I don't know. Tone it down or do something. So I took him back and I changed it again. And I brought it back. He goes, "No, it's just not right." And I said, "Okay." I said, "I tell you what, can I just take him and do what I want to do to him?" And he said, "Yeah, go try something else." So I said, "Okay." So I took him back, and I already knew that all the other ghosts were going to be these pastel-colored people. And I thought, well, maybe he should just be kind of like a pale, cruddy yellow and look like he crawled out from under a rock. And that's literally how that makeup came about. I sent somebody off to a coffee store to get some crushed colored foam, which is what all that moss was growing up his face. I put painted glue on, and then I took that moss and I just slammed it on his face, and whatever stuck to the glue, that's where he had his moss. And then we put stuff in his hair, of course. And I think that poor wig got dyed about 6 times. Yolanda kept dyeing in different colors till we got to where we wanted it. And it wound up, the fact that we had to dye it so many times really made it so cruddy that it was perfect by the time it was done. But it sort of came out, it's funny, it's deceiving, because he was actually not white. Everybody thinks he was white, but if you think about it, white usually goes blue, and he was actually the palest color of yellow that he could have been. So that's kind of what he was. And then, of course, his wig was kind of an off-white with yellow and green in it, dirt, moss and all kinds of other credit stuff. But what's funny about Beetlejuice is Michael Keaton only actually filmed on that movie for about 2.5 weeks. Because if you think about it, he was always in the little miniature world, and there was only a couple of scenes where he was in it with life-size people. But he was so much fun. I mean, some of his best dialogue that we shot was never made into the movie because it was so outrageous. I mean, we must have done that scene where he comes up with that carousel thing on his head that spins around. That carousel thing kept breaking, so I think we shot that scene probably 5 different days. And every time he would come up out of the ground, he would say some other outrageous thing. And they couldn't use it, but we were all dying of laughter. We were like practically wetting our pants. It was so funny. They finally settled on the Kmart shopper thing because it was the only thing that could actually be left in the movie. Oh my God, he was so outrageous. But he had so much fun with that character, and that was kind of his comeback. He hadn't done anything in a while, and the thing I found so interesting was when that movie came out, I don't think it did all that well in the theaters, but it had such a cult following that the resurgence of when it came out on videos and stuff, it did so well, it literally took Warner Brothers out of the toilet. They were in so much, they were so far behind, that they weren't making any money. And Beetlejuice actually pulled them right out of it and put them in the green again. So this crappy little movie that they thought wasn't going to do anything has probably been one of their biggest hits. And this year, Beetlejuice turned 30, so there you go.
All right, we have about 10 minutes left. Do you want to do a couple more questions?
See, just start me talking, I'll never shut up.
I have a question, actually. You've done so many iconic makeups. I'm wondering, is there a warehouse somewhere where all of these are stored? Is Mrs. Doubtfire's face just sitting in a dresser somewhere?
I don't know. I mean, Greg Cannon had those molds for a really long time, but he sold off his lab a few years ago, and I'm not sure what happened to him. He might actually still have the molds for Mrs. Doubtfire. But, they're old school technology, so, they probably aren't worth a damn anymore. It would probably be good if somebody wanted to redo that makeup. We'd do it in silicone now instead of foam latex. It'd be really awesome.
Questions over here? Anybody?
Yeah. I don't believe there's going to be a Beetlejuice 2. He was asking me, am I going to do it? I mean, there's always talk about it. But, I mean, the last time I heard there was a thing, Tim was talking about it, and he said that they don't have a script, and that, and Michael would be really scary in that makeup now. I don't know if you've seen him lately, but he would be pretty damn scary looking at that makeup now.
That's a good one.
Anybody else want to shout out something? I'm working on my knee healing up. I had knee surgery. I actually just took the rest of the year off, but I have 2 films coming out this year. One of them is with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga called A Star Is Born. And that is the 4th remake of a classic film. So it's all been updated, for our time and everything. And it's really going to be cool. I mean, Bradley, of course, Stephanie's amazing. She did an incredible job. I was so amazed at what a good little actress she is. She's phenomenal. And Bradley actually is an incredible singer and guitar player. And I said, Bradley, dude, I said, if you didn't want to be an actor anymore, you have a career as a pop star, dude. You're amazing. So he's playing his guitar, he plays and sings, she plays and sings. His band in the movie is Luke, what's Luke's name? Oh my God, Luke Nelson, which is Willie Nelson's son, and it's his band. That's Bradley's band in the film. And between all 3 of them, they wrote all the music, and they do it all. And they actually did it live. A lot of it was done live, so it's not pre-recorded. They're not lip syncing, and it's going to be pretty amazing, I think. And the other film that I have coming out this year is called Welcome to Marvin with Steve Carell and Leslie Mann. And that's going to be a really trippy little movie because that's Robert Zemeckis, and we did a new motion capture type process this year that's never been done before. And the mocap, usually, they'll mocap, you put the dots on people and you get this real plasticky look. But what they've done is they've stepped up the process, and we're going to be using the actors' actual eyes and mouth, and just a blend of, the motion capture CGI type effect. So they're going to look very realistic, and what it is like these little dolls come to life, and it's pretty freaking cool. So, and all the dolls actually look like the actors in the movie, so it's pretty neat, and it's going to be, it's based on a true story, so it's kind of a cool thing. But Bob Zemeckis always does really fun, crazy, cool movies. So those movies are both coming out this fall, so go see them. And I don't know what I'm doing next. I did get a call, a possibility of the new Harley Quinn movie. Maybe. I don't know. It's a maybe at this moment. So, but it was nice to get the phone call. So we'll see about that. But other than that, am I good to go? Are you kicking me off?
Do you have time for one more?
Sure. I got all after. No, I
We
don't.
got a really small fan here.
Where are we?
I was what?
Over on this side too.
I'm lost. Where am I looking? Oh, okay.
I was wondering if you've ever been starstruck of someone you worked on.
Have I ever been starstruck? Yes, only once. And it was Sean Connery. I was like this. It was like, I didn't realize he was so tall. He's like 6'5", It's like, oh my God, it's 007. And I was like this. I was like this. And he was wearing a caftan, and I had to go into his trailer to make him up, and it was like, oh, okay. But it was cool. His wife said it was the best thing. She thought he had ever looked in a movie, and I said, yes. So that was cool. I guess that's it for me, kids.
All right, y'all, please put your hands together for the legendary Neill. Thank you so much.